Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Hartshey. I'm the CEO of RevCycle Partners. I'd like to thank everyone for taking some time today to join us for our webinar. Before we get started, let me cover some typical webinar logistics. Everyone on the call is muted just to take care of the noise situations. We will have a Q&A session at the end. You'll be able to find a place in your GoToWebinar panel that you can submit questions. So please feel free to submit those along the way, and we'll answer them for you at the end. We are recording this session, so if you have to step away or if you want to share the recording with someone else, you'll get an email with a link to it. So feel free to route that around the rest of your team if that's appropriate. And finally, I'd like to thank the RevolutionEHR team for hosting the webinar and giving us a chance to speak to its customer base. We appreciate our partnership with RevolutionEHR and the opportunities they give us to talk about our services to their customers. So thanks to that team. So what we want to try and accomplish today, we provide billing services for, I don't know, hundreds of practices across the country, and outsourced billing is an option that many practices have chosen, and I think most practices understand that it's an option for them to outsource the billing side of it. I don't think the same can be said for the front end of that insurance process, the verification and benefits eligibility checking. Way fewer practices use outside firms like ourselves to take on this time-intensive task. And really, I feel like if few practices seem to know that it's an option to outsource that effort. So our objective today is to kind of look at that side of the insurance workflow and present outsourcing as a potential alternative for you to consider. We'll dig in and address the kind of the detailed aspects of what outsourcing verification would look like in your practice, what we do, what you would have to do, and things like that. We decided to take a little different tack for this webinar. Instead of pounding through a bunch of slides with data on them or information on them, we're going to have a conversation with a panel, a small panel. We've got two of RevCycle's key. Let me put the panel up here. Hang on a second. There it is. We got two of RevCycle's key members of our operations team. Actually, Christine and Cindy launched our verification service, built it and launched it a little over a year ago. And they are experts in this topic. And so we'll just have a dialogue and conversation amongst the three of us to cover these topics. Before we get started, we'll do a quick intro, and I'll let Christine and Cindy introduce themselves, give a little background. Christine, you want to start? Whoa, hang on a second.
Sure.
I'm going to ask, sorry, I'm sure to interrupt. I just noticed that one person is talking about having audio troubles. And I don't know if that's just them or everybody. Can maybe somebody else chime in and see if they're able to hear properly? Sorry for the interruption. Anybody else having problems? If not, I think the person that sent that in is probably dealing with local stuff, because Christine said you guys are hearing fine, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, don't see any issues with other folks. We have a couple of people saying they can hear, so unfortunately I think it's to the local one person. So Bree, if you can try and figure that out, that would be great. So sorry for the interruption there. Just want to make sure we're not having complete audio problems. Christine, back to you.
All right, so hello everyone. Just a little background about my experience and myself. I have over 20 years of billing experience in office and virtually. In 2007, I had helped implement RevolutionEHR into our practice, and in 2012, I actually started working for RevolutionEHR as a trainer of the software and customer support. In 2013, I helped to create and build RevCycle, And then in 2018, Paul and I actually spun it out as RevCycle Partners, its own business separate from RevolutionEHR. Our intention has been and continues to be to grow and expand the service and its offerings. Cindy?
Yep. I am Cindy Miller, and I'm the WeVerify manager. I have about 25 years experience of billing and verification, both in offices and virtually, as Christine said. I started out with Revolution as a biller, moved up to a team lead, became a manager, and then Christine and I built the WeVerify service and launched
Great.
it about a year ago.
All right, thanks you two. With that, let's dig in. Oh, good news, the one audio problem has been fixed, so we're all good to go here. So we titled the webinar "New Take on an Old Topic," and obviously for everybody on the call, that doing benefits and eligibility verification is a topic and practices have been dealing with for a long time. So Christine, maybe as a refresher though, can you summarize, what the key objectives are, that a practice is trying to accomplish in gathering this, information prior to a patient coming in?
Sure. I think it's pretty obvious, right? When you talk about eligibility and benefits, you are wanting to make sure that the insurance is active, and you're also wanting to make sure that the patient is eligible for services. If they have multiple insurances, then it's knowing, okay, is there medical coverage? Is there vision only coverage? Is it a combination of both? And what order do they fall in for billing? It's also getting the details then of the coverage itself. So for medical plans, you're looking to get copay information, deductibles. You're checking, is there routine vision coverage within the medical plan? If so, what are those allowances? It's also verifying too, is the plan calendar year or is it service date specific? Perhaps there's remaining amounts due on a deductible that you may want to capture when the patient's in office. When you're dealing with the standalone vision plans, payers like VSP or IMED or Versant, you want to make sure that you're getting the authorizations and the patient option sheets and understanding from there what you need to charge your patient.
Good. So Cindy, maybe that's kind of what has to happen to make the process work. Maybe you can come at it from the why. What's the benefits of doing that in a robust fashion, if you will, from a practice? If they do that well, what benefits do they reap?
Okay. I think, I think one of the first things that stands out to me after, working in a practice is if we're doing verification, we know when a patient's benefits are available. We know a date. And a lot of times in the office, patients would come in and they had not reached the date of their benefit being available. So you have an upset patient, you have an upset doctor, you have all of those things going on. So if the patient's scheduled for the 10th, but when we do the verification and their benefit's not available again until the 15th, we let the office know that. So there's plenty of time to reschedule that patient. And I guess some of the other things are making sure that the office is collecting the proper copay. And, with that, knowing that you're collecting the proper copay and deductibles, that's less generating and sending of patient statements. And it's
Got it.
also letting us find the information to let the office and patient know what their unused materials benefits could be for the year.
Got it.
Yeah,
So
I think it's
go
also,
ahead, Christine.
don't mind me jumping in on this one.
Yeah, no, go.
Yeah, I think it's also too, like how often we experience, the patient calls in and says nothing's changed with their insurance from last year. I think part of it's also finding out if a plan isn't active any longer, maybe something changed with the policy number or the group number or something. Just knowing that, okay, when that patient comes in, you actually have to do something, which is get that new card and get the new information. I think another thing too is prior authorizations and referrals. There's plenty of HMO plans out there that require those from the PCP. So, having an understanding of what you might have to do up front before you can even see that patient.
Mm-hmm.
So if most practices are doing this with their in-house staff, where do you guys think they struggle with it? If they are having problems, implementing a robust verification process?
I think it's time. If we all had a way to purchase more time in our days, no matter what we're doing, right? It's so many times staff ends up multitasking. I mean, there's phones ringing off the hook. There's somebody that called in sick, or there's, a tech needing help, something that pulls the front desk person or the insurance person away from the dedicated time to call the insurance or to log into a couple of websites, to pull the details and the data. Always, working in an office, our first priority always was the patient and making sure that everything was taken care of for them. So, naturally something falls off that priority list. And a lot of times it's this particular process.
Yeah, focus on priorities. So that's a good overview on the verification side. So, the other half of our topic or webinar is the outsourcing concept, right? And I think most people understand it, but again, just kind of level set and get everybody thinking about it the same way. Christine, can you kind of give an overview of how outsourcing fits in and how a practice should be thinking about outsourcing, whether it's for verification or some other aspect of the practice. What are the basics around outsourcing?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people, when they think about outsourcing, it's a scary word. They feel like they might have to give up everything that's related to the job, maybe losing control because outsourced people aren't obviously in office, so you can't necessarily see, quote unquote, what's going on, right? So there's a fear, and staff, I think, fear losing their position or their importance within the office as well. Many times, though, that really isn't the case. Outsourcing can be looked at as staffing alternatives, a way to enhance the current team that's already in place. Allow that team to focus their talents on working with the patients, or maybe just offloading the parts of the job that they don't enjoy doing. Some people do, I think, look at it as a way to replace staff, depending on what their business model is or what they're up against. There's ways to communicate and to ensure that the job is being done even when staff isn't there. I think there's also a way to, help practices that just don't want to deal with the hiring and the training and the personnel issues that pop up with, having staff. And lastly, I think outsourcing gives you a consistency. You're doing one job, one focus. I think there's transparency and accountability also to that because, again, that's your only job. That's what you're doing. So
it's really different for each practice and each situation, right? I mean, depending on the firm, depending on the topic, the flexibility of figuring out where an outsourced firm fits in, what's whether it's augmenting the staff or, as you say, replacing just a piece of the work as opposed to all of it, that kind of stuff. So, all right, good. Let's dig into the details now a little bit more on our WeVerify service and get into kind of the nuts and bolts of it. As we talk to practices that are considering our services, whether they be billing, whether they be credentialing, or whether they be this verification topic, one of the most important parts of that discussion and assessment, I think, from a practice is to make sure that they understand, have a proper understanding of the responsibility or the division of labor. What do we take on if they sign up with us, and what remains and probably as importantly is what remains with the team in the office. What's that separation of responsibility? So, So do you mind digging into that a little bit? Let's start with what do we do? What is your
Okay.
if a practice signs up and you guys are going to do the verification on a kind of day-to-day basis, what are you guys taking over?
Okay. The verification specialist that will be assigned to your office will keep your appointments worked out at least 2 days in advance. So ahead of your schedule. So you'll be able to actually see um, that change by the status buttons to red and green. The green is everything's okay with the appointment. If it's red, there's an indicator that there's a problem. You need to look at it. We're going to have let you know what that is, those kinds of things. So you're just able to get a quick picture of anything you might need to do. Um, the other thing is we're verifying medical and vision. And a lot of times we do find those medical plans that also have a vision benefit each year on that. Um, we're actually taking the information that we're getting and we're putting it in 3 different places within Revolution. So depending on what a person's role is within the office, where they're working, what's most convenient for them within Rev, where they're seeing it. And then, we have a certain place that we're going to upload documents and those things so that, it's all there. The authorizations would be uploaded. And again, the appointments would be, marked accordingly to, whether they're valid or invalid.
You guys do any calls to the payers themselves for some of this stuff, or?
Yes, there are times that we have to actually call the payer.
Got it. So that's on our side. So as I said, the kind of the flip of the coin is what what does the practice need to continue to do that they're probably doing today, or what do they need to do to make sure we're able to do our job?
Okay. One of the most important things is having the correct insurance information in the insurance pod for each patient. Making sure that you're getting new cards when the patient comes in. Like Christine mentioned before, a lot of times they'll call in and say nothing's changed, but sometimes it really has changed. And, we want to make sure that you're capturing all the correct information. We'd like for you to upload a copy of the card, in the patient file. And if there's any subscriber and family relationships, we like for you to be able to connect those together. So, if a patient comes in, it's a child, it's already connected to the father. We know what the insurance is.
Right.
Everything's there like we need it to be. And to make sure that all the demographic information is current and up to date, patient's date of birth, anything like that. Proper names instead of nicknames,
Yeah.
because it goes by what the insurance company actually has the patient listed under.
Good. Sounds good. So the third leg in this stool, I guess, is the patient, right? That practice us and then the patient. Christine, can you talk about or what's our responsibility relative to, let's say, getting that information that Cindy talked about from the patient themselves?
That's an easy answer. We actually don't contact
Okay.
patients. We don't get involved in that side of it.
Why is that?
Mainly because it is the practice's relationship with the patients. The true downside of not being in the practice is understanding these patients' relationships and circumstances. And, obviously as patients return to the practice, you're building that rapport with them. You understand, the folks in your community. Another big reason that we don't is the confusion and the privacy aspects of it. When we call from our computers to a patient, a lot of times we're coming up with a different area code. We're coming up maybe as unknown. So when we say that we're representing the practice, they're like, who are you?
Or they may not just answer, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, there's a whole different realm out there. So we've just chosen to let the practice continue to manage a relationship with their patients and let us take the backside of the, work that nobody really likes to do.
Right. So I often think about our, when practices utilize us, we become like an extension of their team. They're augmenting their team, and if you think about it, an employee that you have in the practice, you're giving them, they need access to various systems to do their job, and as you know, similarly we will as well. So Cindy, can you kind of go through maybe a summary of what are all the systems that a practice would have to give us access to get the job done?
One of the first accesses we need 2 accesses into your RevolutionEHR. That would be one for the specialist and then one for management. So we send out, the documentation to let you know how to do, to do all of that and how it needs to be set up. So definitely the RevEHR portion, your clearinghouses, any payer portals that you're currently using, we need your logins and your passwords to that. I think, we talked earlier today about, you don't have to share yours. A lot of these payers or portals will let you kind of piggyback off of yours and give a separate login and password or something like that. But anything that you have access to, as far as your portals and those things, we have to have access to those as well.
Got it. And that level of access kind of begs the question on security, or raises that topic. Christina, can you talk a little bit about the importance of security when you're working with a firm like ours? How important is it? What's the processes around security concerns?
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, in today's world, right, there's scamming is prevalent, and everybody's cautioned about PHI, from a consumer standpoint, and puts the onus and the pressure on firms like ours, whether you're an eye doctor, whether you're an insurance company, or whether you're an outsourced service kind of working in between, those factors. Our team, we take security very important. We have monthly trainings and quizzes and things that we have the team do regularly, so it's always front and center. And just like any vendor that has access or deals with PHI, we are a protected business partner and adhere to those same strict protections that are out there.
Sign a BAA, that kind of stuff, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, can you give me some examples? I mean, you gotta give, not me, give the like the group some examples of processes that we have in place internally from a RevCycle perspective, to focus on, to ensure that level of security that we're promising to the practice.
Sure. So, one big no-no inside of our company is how we handle passwords. So no sticky notes, no, logins written inside of a notebook or, something like that. We actually utilize the business version of Dashlane, which encrypts all of the login information that we store. So if a biller or a verification specialist is out and somebody else needs to step in to cover the account, when we share something through Dashlane with that person to be able to access, that person actually can't see that information. It's all encrypted. We don't store documents locally. So once we've done an upload for a vision plan to an account, it's deleted and cleared out immediately. At the end of the day, everybody's history, cash, trash, all of that is emptied out. Our computers are password protected. We have strict IT policies about lockdown and locking down the machines and files and things that we're working on, so that access is not easily obtained by anybody. Good.
Sounds good. All right. Next topic we have on the list here is transitioning. So Cindy, let me direct this one at you, because you're the one that's taking on a new customer when a practice signs up. You're working with them to get the process started. So can you focus a little bit or give an overview of what that transition looks like? What's the startup process look like from the practice perspective? What all do they have to do to get this thing going? Ooh, Cindy?
Can you hear me now? I'm sorry. I think it was something with I'm sorry.
My heart stopped. I thought you lost me. All right,
with
take it away, Cindy.
okay,
The
so
the
with
topic is transitioning.
okay, so I was talking. So let's see. So once I get a notification on my team that we have a new office coming in, signing on for, for us to start up and onboard, then we are, you're going to get an email. You're going to get a welcome email. You're going to get some attachments with that. One of the attachments that would be with that would be the instructions on and directions on how to set up that access for us for the RCVerify and the RCVerify management access logins that we need. So you would have that. The other thing that we're going to have in there will be documents asking for your logins and passwords for your vision and your medical portals. And we would also, at that time review with you the appointments that you would or would not want verified. Now we verify medical and vision, on each patient. Occasionally an office will have maybe a template type that they don't want to have verified. And then of course we have a couple of template types that we do not verify for. And a couple of those are cataract post-op, just RX checks,
Hmm.
contact lens,
Kind of
fits, those kinds of
follow-up
things.
appointment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
follow-ups. Yeah. And we don't do those. And then we'll schedule a call for a go to meeting. And at that point, we would then be live in your system. We would already have verified some appointments in your system. So you would be looking at your actual system live. We'd go over everything we're doing, showing you where everything's going to be within Revolution, answering any questions that you have, us gathering any information that, that we might need. And that's kind of how we do that part of it.
So it sounds like a big part of it is a data dump, if you will, getting
Mm-hmm.
all that information, something set up, but mainly getting all the information so that you can get access back to all those systems we talked about. It sounds like the main piece. Is that fair?
Yep, I believe so.
So I mean, you've onboarded dozens of practices for this. What's your assessment on what what should a practice focus on, or what can a practice do to make that go smoothly? What are the how do the smooth ones go? What are the
Okay.
highlights?
Okay. Usually about the first 2 weeks to 30 days is how long it takes to get everybody moving on the same page, because the office already has a process. We're coming in with a new process, so it's learning to work together in that space and making sure that everyone understands each other. So communication is very important. During the calls, we make sure the startup call, we make sure, that we're finding out who you would want tasks to be sent to. If there's an issue or something we need to let you know about a verification, is it going to be the doctor, the manager, the billing person, whoever that is? And, and we go through that. So we just want to make sure we're on a really good communication level with each other.
Okay.
And that keeps down the, the frustrations. And, we just want to, and that also gives you the opportunity then to stay on top of those authorizations that you need, because we're going to be tasking to say that this patient's Blue Cross Blue Shield needs a referral, or they need a PA, or whatever it is that they need. But we're going to be giving you everything that you need to know to do with any of your verifications.
All right. So last topic on our list before we jump into Q&A, and feel free to add some more. There's a couple questions coming in, so feel free to submit some questions to us. Is communications and status. So we outsource pieces of our business, accounting side. We have a strong relationship with a marketing firm that we do for outsourcing, things like that. And it seems to me that as I think about using outsource for firms for various topics, that the communication is a key area to focus on, a key area for success with a vendor relationship, right? So Christine, maybe can you go over how that looks for WeVerify? Who are we mostly communicating with? how frequently you're communicating with them? How does that work?
I think, Cindy can talk more to the day-to-day side of the communications, but, touching on, just the communication topic, right?
Yeah.
We generally have one main contact, I think, that the team is working with, for notifications of prior authorizations and such. That contact can be a staff person, it can be an office manager, a doctor. But sometimes it might be a combination of all three of those, or maybe there's a contact set up for the day-to-day side of it, but there's a different contact set up for, just overall, hey, how's it going? Reporting goes to somebody else. It just really depends on what a practice wants and who they want to be in charge of what sides of it.
So Cindy, Christine gave you the day-to-day topic, right? So how do you guys communicate with a practice? Are you, is it phone calls? Is it emails? What's the?
We usually try to do as much as we can within Revolution and the messaging area, the messaging system there, because first of all, it is secure, and we don't have to worry about any of that information being out. If it's something that we need to let you know, like maybe a patient's exam is not available or something like that we need to task you about, we're going to send a task. So like Christine was saying, we're going to find out who those key people are going to be. Sometimes offices have one person if it's about an authorization, but they have another person that would work on something else that needed to be found about insurance or something like that. So it's just basically we like to work through the system as much as we can. So
Sure, that makes sense.
Messaging and tasking.
Everybody's in there anyway, so
yeah.
Right.
So,
and I think
okay.
too that the communication isn't just coming from our side to the practice. We have the 2 logins specifically also for the practice to have ways to reach us. The billers or the verification specialist side, the person that's in your account every day, that's one way to communicate with them directly through the system, whether it's a task or a message. But then there's also the management side of it. So if you have maybe concerns over something not done the way you expected, or maybe something was missed, or you want to talk through a better way to create a workflow or to find a solution to something that's maybe just a pain point in the office with our workflow, we want to brainstorm that stuff together, right, and problem solve. So, there's a way to reach out and bypass the verification specialist in that regard. We have set up phone calls with practices, sometimes regular touch points too. I know Cindy's mentioned, especially in the first stages, where you're trying to figure things out with each other, so you might set up a weekly regular call just to talk through and say, hey, how's it going? Did you remember to look here? Or remember, here's where you're going to find this information.
Right.
So there's certainly other ways that we can communicate too.
So last one before we move to Q&A is what would you recommend for a practice relative to getting status and information and basically checking on whether how well we're doing the job for them? What are there reports in Rev they should be looking at? Is there data we're providing them? How does a practice keep us in check?
Sure. So every month we're going to send a ledger of the schedule activity that we have verified appointments for. It's basically going to show the details of the appointment and how many of those were done, and that will essentially be what you're going to be charged from. But there's other ways too inside of Revolution that a practice can certainly be proactive and check on things or look ahead or look behind even. There's various schedule reports, custom queries that you can build that can look for specific activity. But there's also even just paging through your schedule the next day or the next 2 days or the next 3 days, if we are 3 days out in your account, or just being able to look at those status balls to get an idea, okay, of how many were verified, how many are an issue that you may need to look at. You can even page through those appointment details to be able to get an idea of, what kinds of insurances you're going to be dealing with, or opticians can plan ahead for, I've got 5 ESP and I've got 3 Spectera. There's different ways to be able to use the system to find that.
All right, great. All right, with that, we're going to roll into the Q&A side of things. I'm going to take the first question, which I've actually got a slide on, and that is price. So some of the questions is things. So we price our service based on the number of patients verified, or another way to think about it is number of appointments that we verify, independent of how many payers are tied to that appointment. And it's so as Christine mentioned, we tally up the number of appointments that we verified for the month, and we charge based on that. So each month the bill might be slightly different. And it's $375, starts at $375 for appointment number 1, and you can see the tiered discounts that apply as that grows. Question we often get is about contracts. Do you have to commit for a certain period of time, and how long? And we don't have any long-term contracts. We have a 60-day out clause for any reason. We just ask for 60 days so that we can wind down the account and transition it back to the practice, and kind of reassign our resources. So that's the pricing side. We are announcing an end-of-year promotion. So starting today with this webinar and through the end of the year, anyone that signs up for WeVerify will get a 10% discount off of the first 6 months. So if you're interested in digging in deeper with us and seeing if this is a good fit for your practice, don't forget about this promotion. Before we get into the last thing, housekeeping before we get into the questions, is I'm going to post a little poll. We have, there we go, launch it. We have about a recording of about a 10-15 minute video that shows how we use RevolutionEHR to do this. Where does the data go? What do the appointments look like? And where is the data entered that we capture for you guys? And so if you're interested in getting we'll just send you an email with a link to that. If you're interested in that, just reply to the poll here, or the survey, and we'll get that out to you. And we'll also send out the recordings to everyone as well. So I'll leave that up for a bit, and we'll jump to the Q&A. I'll put our contact information in here. First question. Oops, I got to resize this for a second. Sorry about that. So one question that came in during the conversation is so you check for routine benefits under the medical, and I think you mentioned that, Cindy. You want to go into a little bit more detail about getting those vision riders?
Sure. A lot of medical plans do have a vision rider. They do have vision benefits. A lot of times the patients don't know that. Sometimes the office doesn't know that. But let's just say the patient had Blue Cross Blue Shield and VSP. So they had their VSP benefit, but under their Blue Cross Blue Shield plan, they might actually have a routine vision exam one time per year or once every 24 months. So we're going to capture that information. Not only are we going to capture to let you know that they have it, we're going to let you know whether they've used it somewhere else, if it's still available when they're coming in for their actual appointment. Some of those riders offer more than just an exam, but just depending on the payer, and not all patients, of course, have that. So,
okay, I think that hopefully that covers it. I've got a couple questions here that are kind of semi-related. Let me read them both and let you guys tackle them. The first is, do you have to sign up for the RevCycle billing services to do verification? And the second question is, I use your billing service. Will my biller do the verifications? So kind of touching on the differences between the billing and verification service. How do they relate?
Sure.
Christine,
So you don't have to sign up for any of our other services to sign up for WeVerify. It's a standalone service, so it's not meant to have to be part of a bundle package or anything. So The second part of that question, the verification team is a separate team than the billing team. So a biller would not be the one doing the verifications. Cindy's team is just dedicated and focused solely on getting the benefits. What's nice, if there is a bundled option there, to have the front end and the back end covered like that, works well for the biller to understand what the benefits were up front, to be able to call the insurance and dispute something that may have processed differently than what was told.
Okay, good. Another question from apparently from an existing billing service customer. If we use RevCycle billing, can can we just get all our login information from the info we gave them? So I think it's going back to all that the setup stuff, Cindy, that we were talking about. If they're a billing customer, can you get all that stuff from the billing team?
Well, there are times that we can't. If they are a billing customer, we do look to that to see if we can get everything we need. We need to make sure that all of those are updated and that they're the correct and newest of, everything they have. But there's also sometimes going to be, a few pieces and parts to that may be separate, that they may need to give us that they wouldn't be given the billing side. Just,
okay. Sure.
So
it may be a time that we reach out for something,
Sure.
Right, and I can talk a little bit more to that. Some of our billing customers might only give us access to 3 or 4 portals that they need in order to complete the billing side of it. Whereas the verification side, if we're going to be doing all of the benefits for all of the medical payers and all of the benefits for the vision payers, that list might be longer than what they've given to the billing team. So.
All right, I've got one more question, so I'll take that one. If anybody has any last minute ones, we can squeeze them in. But last question I have, I'll run to you, Christine, and maybe you can clarify for everyone. It says, once payments are received, who posts? The staff or us? So again, maybe some clarification on the verification service as a standalone from the billing service.
Oh, so
I'll reread. I commented too much. Basically, the question is once payments are received, who posts them?
So if you're signed up for the billing service, the biller would be the one posting payments that come in. The verification team is just focused solely on the front end, right? Just getting the information for the upcoming visit. The biller would be the one responsible for reviewing claims, filing claims, correcting any errors, posting those payments, following up on denials.
Got it. Yeah. So it's kind of a general comment. We have, roughly, I'd say half of our verification customers also use our billing service, but the other half don't, right? And so, as Christine's mentioned, we've set this up as a separate, independent service because some practices really, don't need the assist on the billing side, but can use it on here. So it's separate. With that, I think we will wrap things up. Just want to thank everybody for their time. Cindy, Christine, thanks for your time and sharing all your expertise on it. Again, thanks to RevutionEHR for giving us the opportunity to do this. And we're close enough to Thanksgiving and the holidays. I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Stay safe out there if you're traveling. And we'll go from there. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.